The storm came without warning, sheets of rain hammering the midnight sea, wind howling like a beast from the depths. Liam Harris gripped the rusted edge of his fishing boat, blinking against the blinding flashes of lightning. He was just trying to get through another night on the water, hoping to catch enough to pay off the month's rent. But then, through the chaos, he saw something no one expects to see out there, a luxury yacht, massive and gleaming even in the storm, breaking apart under the waves. A scream pierced the wind. A single voice. A woman's. He didn't think, he just moved. Throwing off his jacket, tying a rope to his waist, and plunging into the freezing water. The waves crashed against him like fists, salt and rain burning his eyes, but he swam harder, faster. Through flashes of lightning, he caught sight of her, a figure clinging to a shattered railing, her hair tangled, her dress ripped by the sea. "Hold on," he shouted, voice barely audible over the storm. Her hand slipped. For a second, she vanished beneath the waves, and his heart stopped. He dove, lungs screaming, fingers cutting through the black water until he felt her arm. He pulled her close, fighting the drag of her soaked clothes, and somehow, by sheer will, he got her back to the boat. When he laid her down on the deck, pale and unconscious, he thought she was gone. But then she coughed, water spilling from her lips, and her trembling hand grabbed his sleeve. He looked into her eyes, fierce, terrified, but alive. That's when he realized, this wasn't just anyone, this was Evelyn Carter, one of the most powerful businesswomen in the country. CEO of a global tech empire. A woman worth millions, maybe billions, and she owed her life to a broke fisherman. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the sea eerily calm. Liam's small coastal cabin was a far cry from the luxury Evelyn was used to. The place smelled faintly of salt and coffee, its furniture worn and old but clean. She sat wrapped in one of his thick flannel blankets, watching him pour hot water into a chipped mug. "You saved me," she said softly, her voice still rough. "I don't even know your name." "Liam," he replied. "Liam Harris." She studied him, rough hands, sun-browned skin, dark stubble on his jaw. A man used to hard work and quiet living. He didn't stare at her like others did. Didn't ask for anything. Just offered her tea and sat across the table, as though saving a billionaire was just another day's work. "You were lucky," he said. "That storm could have swallowed us both." Evelyn smiled faintly. "I guess money doesn't buy luck, does it?" He gave a dry chuckle. "No, ma'am. But it sure helps you afford better boats." For the first time in years, she laughed, not the polite kind she gave in boardrooms, but real, raw laughter. And for a few hours, the walls between their worlds disappeared. By the time a rescue team arrived that afternoon, she had learned more about him than she ever expected. That he'd lost his wife 3 years ago in a car crash. That he was raising his 8-year-old son alone. That his debts were piling up, but he refused to sell the little boat his father built. When she stepped into the rescue chopper, Evelyn turned to him one last time. "I won't forget this, Liam." He smiled faintly. "Don't worry about it. Just stay away from storms." He didn't expect to see her again, but the next morning, just as he was fixing the boat's engine, a deep rumble echoed through the quiet dock road. 5 black SUVs rolled to a stop in front of his cabin. Men in suits stepped out, scanning the area like a security detail. And from the center vehicle, Evelyn Carter emerged, dressed elegantly, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Liam froze, wrench still in hand. "You came back?" She smiled faintly. "I told you I wouldn't forget." She hadn't slept all night. The more she thought about it, the more something inside her shifted. For years, she'd surrounded herself with people who cared about her money, her power, her image. But when everything fell apart, when death stared her in the face, it wasn't her company, her board, or her so-called friends who saved her. It was a man with nothing to gain, and that kind of loyalty? She couldn't ignore it. "I owe you my life," she said as she stepped closer. "And I don't take debts lightly." "You don't owe me anything," Liam replied, her gaze softened. "Then let me help you anyway." He shook his head. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity," she said. "It's opportunity." He frowned. "What kind of opportunity?" She turned to one of her assistants, who handed her a folder. "You run this boat alone. You could run a fleet." "I'm starting a new sustainability project, clean fishing, ocean preservation." I need someone who knows these waters better than anyone. He blinked. You want me? I want a man who dives into a storm to save a stranger, she said. You're exactly the kind of person I trust. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He thought about his son, about the bills, about the life that had been nothing but struggle. Then he looked at her, this woman who could have walked away but didn't, and something inside him finally eased. All right, he said quietly. But only if I get to name the first boat. She smiled. Deal. What will you call it? He looked out at the sea, the same sea that nearly took them both, and whispered, second chance. Months passed. The harbor that once held only Liam's rusting fishing boat now gleamed with a fleet of new vessels. Fishermen who'd nearly lost everything were working again, thanks to Evelyn's project. She visited often, no longer the untouchable CEO behind glass towers, but a woman who found peace watching sunsets over the water. Liam's son adored her. He'd race to greet her every time she came by, tugging her hand and calling her Miss Eve. And every time she laughed, Liam's heart betrayed him a little more, but he said nothing. She belonged to a world of boardrooms and investors. He belonged to the Tide Point. One evening, Evelyn stood on the dock beside him, the sun melting into the horizon. You ever think about that night? She asked softly. All the time, he admitted. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't seen you. She smiled faintly. Then neither of us would be here. You'd still be fighting the sea alone, and I'd still be pretending I was happy. He turned to her. You don't pretend anymore? She looked at him, eyes glistening. Not when I'm here. The silence that followed was tender, charged. The waves lapped gently against the dock. Somewhere in the distance, Liam's son laughed, chasing a gull. Of fate had brought them together once through chaos, but now it kept them together through quiet. Months later, the foundation launched globally. Evelyn's name became synonymous not with money, but with change. And beside her, always, was Liam. Not as a project manager. Not as an employee. But as the man who taught her that life's greatest fortune isn't found in numbers, but in people. One night, standing by the sea that had once nearly claimed them, Evelyn whispered, You gave me my second chance, Liam. He smiled, gently brushing a lock of hair from her face. No, Evelyn. You gave me mine. The waves rolled softly beneath them, whispering secrets only they could hear. And as the stars reflected across the calm water, they both knew sometimes, it takes a storm to bring the right souls home.